They thought they could steal my family's land while I was serving in Afghanistan. They poured concrete on top of my grandfather's creek, built 35 fancy houses, and told me it was theirs now. I didn't argue. I just slid the 1923 water rights deed across the table and watched their million-dollar homes become lakefront property. Welcome to the HOA Whisperer. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more unbelievable stories. You won't want to miss this. My name is Jake Morrison. I'm 34 years old, a veteran of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the third-generation owner of 47 acres of land just outside of Austin, Texas. That land has been in my family since 1955, when my grandfather, who we all called Pops, bought it. Pops always said the land would be worth something special one day. I just didn't think it would turn into a war zone right here at home. Pops was a simple, smart man. He cared deeply about our land and the people around us. In 1978, he worked with the Army Corps of Engineers to build a small earthen dam on our property. Nothing fancy, just a solid dam to collect rainwater for our cattle and help neighbors during droughts. For 45 years, it worked just like he planned. Then, I went to Afghanistan. I did 2 tours overseas. My job was water infrastructure, building wells, managing water flow, keeping bases supplied in the desert. It's not glamorous work, but I learned one thing fast: water is power. People will do anything to control it. Back home, Pops passed away during my second deployment. The land was put into a trust, and my sister Sarah was in charge of it. She's a good person, but she lives in California and doesn't know much about Texas property law. She hired a company to manage the land and pay taxes, and she didn't think anything else was needed. That's when the HOA moved in. Willowbrook Estates. Sounds nice, right? Well, it wasn't. The president of the HOA is Margaret Thornwell. People call her Maggie. She's 52, always wearing tennis outfits, driving a white BMW, and speaking in that fake sweet voice that hides how nasty she really is. Her husband, Rick Thornwell, is a city councilman. That's how they get things done, through connections and shady paperwork. They built 35 big, fancy homes on land that wasn't theirs. They thought no one would notice because no one was living on it. They filed something called an adverse possession claim. That means if land looks abandoned and someone uses it for a long time, they can try to take it. But they didn't own the water. And they didn't own the dam. I got home in August 2023. I drove down that dusty road expecting to see the pastures I grew up on. Instead, I saw survey stakes, concrete trucks, and construction workers building homes on my back 40 acres. I asked the foreman what was going on. He said, "Sorry, buddy, we've got permits. This land belongs to Willowbrook Estates now." I called the police. Officer Martinez showed up and said the HOA had claimed the land while I was deployed. When I asked about the dam, he just shrugged. Then Maggie pulled up in her golf cart, smiling like she'd won. "Your family abandoned this land, honey," she said. "We're just putting it to good use." But what made me furious wasn't just the homes. Her crew had diverted the creek. That small stream that fed Pop's dam. Gone. Rerouted. The water level was dropping fast. She looked me in the eye and said, "You should have stayed closer to home, soldier boy." That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about land. This was a war. At first, I hired a lawyer. Big mistake. He wanted $85,000 just to file a zoning challenge. Turns out, while I was overseas, Rick Thornwell had used his power to change the zoning on my land, turning it from agricultural to residential. That made it easier to claim. I stopped trusting lawyers. Instead, I started digging through records, just like I did overseas when searching for IEDs. And guess what I found? First, Pop's original dam paperwork, signed by the Army Corps of Engineers. That meant the dam fell under federal jurisdiction, not local or city law. Then came the bombshell, a 1923 water rights deed. my great-grandfather had secured rights to all the water in Willow Creek. These rights were older than the city, older than the county, and older than every single house they built. Legally, that water was mine. But Maggie wasn't done. She went on the local news talking about the dangerous dam upstream. Said she was worried about children's safety. She cried on camera, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, acting like I was the problem. She posted on the Nextdoor app, warning neighbors about a mentally unstable veteran nearby. Everyone knew she meant me. Then came the real pressure. She sent 3 HOA members to sit at the end of my driveway every day, writing down license plates of anyone who visited. She reported me for loud music, old buildings, even septic system violations, none of which were real. Then Rick sent in the city. Building inspector, fire marshal, health department, animal control all in one day. Each found minor violations that would cost thousands to fix. It was a full-on attack. I didn't panic. I called my old Army buddy, Tony Riggs. He works for the EPA now. I told him what was going on. When I mentioned the diverted creek, he went quiet. "Jake," he said, "if they rerouted that water without federal permits, that's a violation of the Clean Water Act. And if your dam has federal jurisdiction," he didn't need to finish. I knew this wasn't a land dispute anymore. This was a federal crime. I set up trail cameras, took time-stamped photos, measured water flow, documented everything. Then the city sent me a certified letter. They were seizing my land under eminent domain for public safety. The hearing was in 2 weeks. They offered me $180,000 for land worth nearly $900,000. Maggie told the paper. Sometimes you have to protect the community from itself. That night, storm clouds gathered. Literally, I stood at my window and watched them roll in. I realized something. The dam was nearly full. It had collected over 3 million gallons of water, and I still had the spillway keys. I started planning. I met with a new lawyer, Amanda Cross. She was passionate, sharp, and took the case pro bono. We gathered more evidence. Miguel Santos, a nearby farmer, showed that his family had used that water since 1887. Mrs. Chen, my elderly neighbor, had photos of her grandfather's garden from the 1940s fed by the same creek. Even the Audubon Society got involved. The diverted creek had destroyed bird habitats protected by federal law. Turns out, hurting wildlife while committing water theft. Bad idea. Meanwhile, Maggie kept pushing. She flew to California to scare my sister Sarah, saying I was mentally unstable and dangerous. Sarah laughed in her face. "Touch my brother's land again, and I'll call the FBI." Then I made one final discovery. While flying my drone over the dam, I noticed something in the back structure. A hidden emergency spillway part of the 1978 design hadn't been used since 1982. I tested the gates at night. They still worked. They were built to safely release water in case of flood risk. I ran the numbers. The dam could release water directly down Willow Creek. Original path right through the HOA's 35 illegal homes. Legally, safely, and with federal protection. The day before the eminent domain hearing, the skies opened. Rain poured for 10 straight hours. I made my move. I contacted the Army Corps of Engineers, sent them every document: dam permits, water rights, creek diversion data, environmental violations. I called the EPA, the media, and federal investigators. I even called FEMA. Then I opened the spillway gates. Slowly, controlled, safe, but powerful. Water surged down the dry creek bed. It followed its original course straight through the heart of Willowbrook Estates. Lawns flooded, basements soaked, and every single lakefront home became actual lakefront property. Federal agents showed up the next day. So did environmental inspectors. So did the media. They didn't come for me. They came for Maggie. Turns out, her HOA never had the right permits. Never filed the wetlands reports. and never disclosed the flood risk to the banks that financed the development. That's mail fraud, environmental crime, and insurance fraud all at the federal level. Her empire collapsed overnight. The city dropped the eminent domain claim. The HOA's development loan was canceled. And Maggie? She's under federal investigation again. As for me, I still walk that gravel road every morning. I still watch water flow from the dam pops built with care. But now, the land is quiet again. The creek is alive. And the people who tried to steal it, they learned the hard way. Don't mess with a veteran who understands water, law, and gravity.